Welcome to today's webinar where we're going to be talking about how to make the best staffing choices for a successful 2021. And my name is Katrina Aarsman. I'm the CEO of Pure Bookkeeping, and I'm joined with Steve Musico from Happy HR. And welcome, Steve. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Katrina. How are you?
Good. Yes, very well. Very well. And I just wanted to, if you've got any questions during the session, then please pop it into the Q&A box. If you've got any comments that you'd like to make, you're welcome to make those into the chat box so we can highlight, where the questions are sitting and we can answer them as we go along. And if you do need to have a good old chat, we can also take you off mute and let you have a chat and a question and, have a conversation as well if the need arises. So let's get into the presentation today. So our agenda for today is that Steve and I are going to be talking about the key business benchmarks for your business that is necessary for just you to monitor, the success and the outcome of your business. What employees do you need? Setting up processes for success and creating a business culture for your business, which is something that we don't actually think too much about as a bookkeeping business. So it'd be great to hear Steve's some comments and his experience in that area as well. But first off, I would like to ask those in the audience, do you currently have staff? And maybe how many hours a week you'd might like to mention. If you could pop it into the chat, and that will allow us to have an idea of who is on the call today, and their experiences that they're having with staff. So Diane's got none at the moment. That's all good, and that's why you are here, to learn how to put staff on. Anyone else like to share? I know Karen looking to hire the first staff member. Judy has part-time, 3 days a week. Great. Okay, so we've got some, and Kay, none at the moment, looking to hire. Great, so you're also in the right place. Okay, so let's talk about what are your key business benchmarks. So Steve, do you want to talk to this point?
Yeah, not a problem. So key business benchmarks, it's I guess one of those really, it's simple, but it's also complex. So I guess the first question is, well, what are they? Basically, it's data points that allows you to track your business performance versus your business goals. And typically they're mandated by wider business goals, and they can include things like customer satisfaction or things like, I guess, percentage of sales and all those sorts of things. So really, I guess the reason why this part is important is because we get a lot of questions around, well, when do I know is the right time to hire my first employee, or when is it the time to hire the next one, or what should that look like? And really, those decisions can be brought back to the basic data and making sure that you've got your business benchmarks set, and a comparison of what your business goals are and what that would look like when you're hiring somebody, and what is your business performing like, and understanding where those metrics or trigger points are to sort of go to that next level and hire that first employee, or that second, or that third, or whatever it may be at the time. So basically, I guess that's a bit of an overview as to what they help to achieve, but really it allows you to help you to understand your current business, where it's your business, where it's sitting at the moment, and what the next 6, 12, and 18 months looks like. These also play a pivotal role, and we'll discuss this in our second webinar around position descriptions, but they do help to, I guess, put a track in place for KPIs for staff in terms of what their expectations are on a day-to-day basis, and overall goals as well. But I guess another key point here is something that a lot of businesses have had to face during this COVID period, is it does give you an indication of when to pivot, and what that pivot looks like depending on what your benchmarks are. So if you do have a goal to maybe hire a part-time staff member as your first employee, but business is going crazy and it's going really, really well, you may need to pivot that thought process and then start to look for a full-time employee instead, just because of the workload that's there. So really, I guess in a nutshell, yeah, your business benchmarks are there to I guess be that reference point, that data point as to when to start making those decisions and what that looks like, and how to bridge that gap between where you are now and where you would like to be in sort of 12 or 24 months time.
It also allows you to really think deeply around your vision for your business.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at your business benchmarks, it gives you an idea if you do want to grow. And, is that, a place where you want to be, so that you are comfortable with growth, with putting staff on. So it gives you that, that emotional connection with your business and, the goals that you're wanting to set for yourself. And if they feel comfortable or, excite you, and we always want to push ourselves out of our comfort zone in setting those goals. But is that the vision for your business as well? So it looks like those that are on the call today, it certainly is, they are ready to employ. So it's good to know that, and that exercise helps with that identification. Yeah,
and look, that description I gave is a bit of just an overall view, but I guess from a pure bookkeeping perspective, no doubt, Katrina, you've got some I guess processes or some benchmarks that you use with your licensees. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah. So we do have a KPI spreadsheet, so it does allow you to monitor, certain targets, and it could be around the finances, around your income, around billable chargeable hours, and some metrics around that, but also, how many clients that you want to put on each month, right back to how many clients do you need to visit, or how many prospects do you need to talk to? How many networking events do you need to go to be able to build those in? So the KPI spreadsheets that we do delve with is, into, what you're going to talk about next around the marketing and the financial, and it just helps you keep accountable. If you say, yes, I am going to meet one accountant a month, then it keeps you accountable to say yes or no, you achieved that or not. Yeah.
When you write it down, it comes true, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you focus on it, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, fantastic. So here, I guess, is just some general business benchmarks as an example for everybody to sort of read on the screen. And typically, it's broken down across your strategic, operational, financial, marketing, and sales benchmarks. And again, going to next week's conversation around the position descriptions, especially the strategic, operational, and financial goals, and what that looks like for KPIs around staff. So it is really critical to get this part set for multiple reasons. But some examples of strategic would be just your direction, new products and services you could potentially be offering. Operational, so your improvement of processes, new systems like pure bookkeeping, and implementing them in the business. Financial, so improve profit, EBITDA, gross profit percentage, cost control measures, all that sort of stuff. And then marketing, like you sort of just mentioned there, Katrina, around that activity. What are you going to do to generate that activity? Is it a certain amount of potential cold calling? Is it visiting accountants? Is it networking events? Is it a B&I type session? What activities will you be doing to achieve that particular benchmark of acquisition of clients? And then your sales processes. So having key metrics around what processes or what activity does generate the return that you're looking for. So what are your lead to close ratios? So every meeting that you do have with an accountant, what are the percentages or likelihood of that closing? So that way you can start to break down what all of those activities look like and track those and say, well, yes, this one's actually working. It's provided me A, B, and C. No, I've actually spent quite a bit of time going to networking events, but it hasn't really paid any dividends other than a couple of laughs and some conversations. So having these metrics to track based on performance and ideally what you would like to see is going to give you a good indication as to where to spend your time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be one of our downloads. So after this webinar, you'll get a copy of the recording, and you'll also get a few downloads to take away, which one is around the business benchmarks. And another one is one of our business blueprints. So we have sort of analysed where businesses are, and in pure bookkeeping we call it black belts, that relates to the white belt, blue belt, yellow belt in karate. And it tells you where you could be with your growth of your business. So at what gross sales, what staffing you need, what hours for billable hours you need. So it gives you an idea of how to move up that level up to that 600,000 plus business and what staffing you need for that. So it's a very it's a question that I get asked quite a lot of, when do I need to put a staff member on, or how many staff do I need to be able to achieve this type of business? So that business blueprint will give you a guide as to the growth of your business and what you require in resources for that. Business benchmarks and the KPIs will assist you get to those points.
Yeah, totally agree.
Awesome.
All right. So I guess the next part is once you've established what your business benchmarks are, I should say. Sorry about that. It's now about understanding, well, what type of employee do you need? And obviously everybody knows that there's quite a range of different types, but really the questions you should be asking yourself do form around, well, operationally, what do you need from an employee to achieve your goals and regain control of your time? Financially, what can you afford? And then lastly, what job functions would you like this person to achieve? And what is the time in motion study that is going to make sure that it's achievable under the different employment types? And when we mention time in motion study, that's basically understanding what you want them to do. So a good example that we used on the Facebook Live during the week was that, or sorry, late last week, was that when you're going through the process of trying to understand what type of employee you need, it's a good task or a good activity to start jotting down some of the activities that either you don't want to do yourself, or you feel aren't dollar productive, or are slowing you down in your day, and that will allow you to start piecing together what that position will look like. And then from there, what you're able to do is establish, okay, well, if I'm doing just some general admin work and filing stuff into Excel, for example, how long does that take me? Let's say it's an hour. Well, you got to estimate that somebody that's probably not as experienced as yourself may take an hour and a half. So with all of those different activities starting to build up into what ideally you would like that person to achieve on a day-to-day basis, you can start putting together the time frames as well as to what your expectations are. So we go over the page in just a second around what different, I guess, some different examples, but it is really important to do that time in motion study, because if you find that those activities are going to take 40 hours a week, well, realistically, a part-timer on 3 days a week is not going to be able to satisfy that based on the job functions, and operationally, even though you need that, you may not be able to afford it. So it's very important to have an understanding as to what jobs you would like them to be doing, making sure you can afford that, and then also is that going to help you achieve your goals from an operational standpoint? So time in motion studies are critical.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I do work with our bookkeepers as well, is really breaking that down into the level of skill required for that activity that you are doing. So I go to an extent of having an Excel spreadsheet that has down all of your clients on it, and details the hours per month that you work on each one of your clients at a different skill level. So we are not wanting to employ somebody that is a BAS agent to do a lot of the level 2 data processing, bank reconciliation, filing, receipt bank scanning, those type of activities. So we want to match the person that we're going to employ with the job role that they are going to take on. So by doing some planning and some work before you go off to market to find out exactly what that staff member is going to do, and whether it's a time in motion study or detailing it down in blocks of, I do, for Joe Blogs, I do 20 hours a month and 10 hours is level 2 up to bank rec. Then, identifying all of the work that a level 2 person could do, and that might only come to 20 hours a month for example. So maybe you don't want a level 2. Maybe you are doing 60 hours a month as a BAS agent level of work, and maybe that's the ideal employed person that you need. And especially if you've, like Judy has already got 3 part-timers, a part-time 3 days a week. So Judy may already have covered off enough workload for that 3 days a week person, which is, you know, the type of data processing and grunt work and so on. And now she needs to hire a higher level person. So detailing it, putting it down on either a time motion study, writing it down, getting it documented, makes it really clear on the person that you do need to hire.
100%.
Yeah, so let's look at these examples that you've got here.
Yeah, so just a few. This is more just food for thought as to the different type of scenarios that you may come across. So I guess the first one there, if you need someone who is only helping on with an ad hoc administrative duties. So like you said, Katrina, but the sort of the grunt work, but not as involved. So just to lighten your workload just a little bit, you may just invest in somebody casually or look to a virtual assistant. Another example is if you need someone to service clients but don't have a lot of spare cash and can't afford someone full-time, you would investigate a part-time employee and establish what that looks like. And then if you can't afford somebody full-time, and you may need a mix of administrative and that sort of upper level, as you sort of mentioned, Katrina, that level 2, and then that next level above, you may look at employing 2 employees, but at a part-time or casual rate under different position descriptions, to be able to go back to those benchmarks that you require, those operational requirements as to what's going to lighten the load for yourself, and then sort of mix and match that to determine what's going to be best fit for your business at that particular point, and what's going to drive you forward over the next 6 to 12 months. So just a few things there, but knowing your performance benchmarks will allow you to make an informed decision as to who the first or next employee should be.
Yeah, great. Is there any questions at this stage? I'm going to open up a poll, but if you've got any questions, please pop them down. And I'm going to launch this poll around, do you intend on hiring in the next 6 months? So it'd be great to have a guide as to, you know, when you're wanting to hire and put it out to the universe that you do want to have it within 6 months, or you know, maybe it's not, maybe you're not sure at this stage when you're going to hire. And then what are you fearful of? What are the things that makes you a little bit nervous or a bit resident? Resident isn't the right word.
Hesitant.
What's the word?
Hesitant.
Hesitant. Either that or I'll go with hesitant to hire people at the moment. So, and it can be different for everybody. It's multiple choice for that second question. So if you've got more than one things that is making you a bit nervous on hiring, jot them all down, and we will attempt to answer those in the series that we are doing. So we are doing a 4-part series in this webinar. So we're doing a couple this year, so we're doing another one next week, and then we'll be doing another couple of webinars next year. When we've, you know, developed, you've done a lot of this planning, a lot of the work that you need to do to hire staff, and then next year we'll really go into the deep of keeping those staff, maintaining them, KPIs and those type of things.
Yep.
A little bit further.
Onboarding and all the other fun things included in it as well. Trying to really sort of work in a path with yourselves as you go through this process.
Yeah, but it's really important to do this first step. Make 100%. Sure that you get this planning done. So I'm going to end the poll, and I'm actually going to share it. Let's share the results. So everyone should be able to see that. So not sure about hiring in the next 6 months at this stage. And where to find staff is one of the most difficult thing or fearful thing. Can I afford it? Yeah. What's the process? Sure. You don't have time. Yep. Great. Okay. So good results there. I'll just minimize that out the way. Great. Okay, so then let's see if we can answer some of those questions. So, when is the right time to employ? So often we find bookkeepers are busy. They get stuck in the workload. They're getting a lot of referrals. They don't have enough time in the day to do the work, let alone work on their own business, which means setting some time aside to ensure that you start setting up your system so that you are not doing all of the work, preparing yourself to put that staff member on. And often you want to grow, but you just literally do not know how to do that, how to hire, where to find the right staff, and the mindset of being a business leader rather than maybe a technician in your business. And who do we trust? Finding the right staff that we can trust to give our clients and our clients' work over to, because after all, it is our reputation that we're needing to protect.
Yeah.
So it's important. Sorry, Steve, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say that the one that got the most results being where to find staff. It's a really interesting point, and I think we're going to be going into that in a recruitment section early next year. So stay tuned for that one that's coming up, because that'll certainly help you identify where, because the typical around Seek and all that sort of stuff is not necessarily always the right place. So, but we'll certainly be touching on that early next year.
Yeah, that's right. But again, working on this planning, getting out what exactly it is that you do need, and rather than just jumping in. So many people just go, I need somebody. I don't know who I need. I don't know when or what or whatever. They'll just put an ad in and people will come to them and they'll just grab somebody, but it doesn't actually match it to the job. So neither the employee can succeed because they're not going to match your expectations, and you also don't succeed because you've just grabbed anybody and you've not prepared for it. So the preparation, and we're literally not hiring before Christmas anyway. You'd be very doubtful that you'd be going through that process before Christmas. It's preparing ourselves for next year.
Yep.
Yeah. So setting up the processes for success. So we're wanting to build a system that is the foundations of your business. So a lot of the time we've got all of the information in our head and we know what to do, but we need to be able to create a system that gets that out of our head and allows other people to understand exactly what you're talking about, which is, a effort in itself, I suppose, or challenge.
Yes.
We want to streamline and simplify your processes so that it can be scalable and repeatable. So that's exactly what our outcomes are. We want to experience repeatable and scalable excellence. So it's not just doing the work, it's doing it to the same high standard that you are currently doing it in, and making sure we have a system to be able to allow our staff to do that and allow you to review their work and make sure it is happening. And you use these systems to fast track your business benchmark results. So it comes back to those benchmarks. It's so important, isn't it, Steve, to
setting those foundations in all those areas. That preparation is critical. Without the preparation, it is, like you said, it's your success and the individual success does rest with that preparation, both from a internal bookkeeping process, but everything else that is discussed in those benchmarks is super important.
Yeah. Yep. This is one of the quotes when reading the Getting Things Done book by David Allen. His theory is to make your systems do all the hard lifting. So getting everything out of your head and into a system and allowing the system to actually tell you what to do, when you need to do it and by whom. So, a system is not just the workflow management system. It is the foundations behind that you need to put into those workflow management systems to make sure that you've got clear expectations and the work is being done as the way that everybody expects, and so nobody is disappointed.
Yep.
So the first part of this is like pure bookkeeping speak, we break this down into 3 phases. And this is another one of the handouts or the downloads for today as well, is documenting these 3 phases. So the first one is around your foundations. So, making sure that your folder is set up in a consistent manner so that everybody knows where to find things, they're filing it in the right way, their naming conventions is consistent, so it's easy to search for things because everything is electronic, so it's so much easier to search when you've got this consistent naming conventions. Creating a checklist that are generic enough to use across all clients to then be able to customize, and to document everything about that client, creating little Loom videos to show your staff how to do things. It just provides a really clear and consistent method of filing, and information ensures that you're able to put your hands on anything you want. Your staff can put their hands on any of the information they need to perform their tasks. So this is a really critical step in the foundations, and a lot of bookkeepers that I speak to are ready to put a staff member on, and they're doing all of the work themselves efficiently and successfully, but they haven't done the foundational work to put that stuff into a workflow management software, document it, have the videos, as I mentioned, so that any staff can pick it up at any time and do it. Because I know bookkeepers want to get away on a holiday more than one week a year. And so this stuff is critical for the growth of the business and being able to put that staff member on.
Yeah, and just if I can there, Katrina, with that as well, I mean, at Happy HR, we come across a lot of clients that come to us for that simple reason as well, is just that everything's all over the place. And what that eventually does is it causes inefficiencies within the business because if somebody else has gone and created a folder structure that's completely different to what you do for their clients, it is going to take forever to find the information that you want to find. So instead of just knowing and just going there, finding the information and then executing on that action, you then have to sit there for 5 minutes. And if you're doing that repeatedly, when you work out the amount of time across a day that's actually taking, it adds up. It gets quite significant. So it's very, very important.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Again, the second phase is around the accounting software optimization. So the softwares we're using, the QBO, Xero, MYOB, whatever accounting softwares we're using, we want to create standardization in those processes. So we want to keep it simple, and we want to make sure that it is best practice. So consistency is key in this. So if you're unsure of what you're doing, then you need to find the right way and be able to find it quickly. So it's setting up these, instructionals, configuring things in a consistent way so that you can find exactly the transactions where you're going to, the journals you're doing. So it's like, if you put 10 bookkeepers in a room, they will all do it differently. And, majority of them will be accurate, but they will still put things to different accounts. So it's important to standardize that whole process. So when you as the business owner comes to do the review, you are looking at a consistent set of books every time you look at a client. So it's, really important to do that. And setting up your reports as well. So, with QBO and Xero, you can set up standardized reports. And this also allows you to quickly, it's just streamlining the process so that you can review these things in the same way every time, so that you don't have to jump around and look for different figures and different results and different outcomes. So it's just really clear in what you're doing. And the third phase is around delivering repeatable, scalable excellence. So, once you have put that staff member on, you know exactly what they're going to do. So you've got a set of checklists for them to do on their day-to-day checklists of what to do for their clients. They're monthly and they do it the same way for every client. Their reviews, their IAS, the BASs, their end of year. everything is checklists, so they don't need to think about what they've got to do. Are they doing it accurately? Are they doing too much? Are they doing too little? So, you know, having all of that down, so they don't know exactly what is expected of them. I know, you know, one of my bookkeepers would always ask me, I want clear expectations. I know I can do this work and I can carry it out accurately and quickly, but I don't know what you want me to do. So it was really important for me to be able to then document exactly everything that she needed to do, because she needed clear instructions, and so that she didn't go off the mark and then, you know, I'd go, well, now I've got to invoice the client double or write a whole lot of hours off, which happens a lot in our world. So it's just important to, you know, give them clear instructions. Set your staff up to succeed. And the client manual as well, customize it for each individual client. So you're giving your business that ability to scale. And I love this quote where you don't rise to the level of your goals, but you fail to the level of your systems. This is so true. And it's, you know, we talk about systems, or often I hear, you know, it's quite boring, we're talking about the systems, but it's just foundational. It is just so important to have.
Yeah, especially if you're going through that process of bringing on a new employee, if there's a predictable process for them to follow, it just makes that transition and that, I guess, that onboarding experience so much simpler. And it gets them to the level where you want them to be operating so much quicker. And that then reduces your stress, reduces their stress in that critical 3-month period of time, especially as a new employee. So yeah, having all of this in place from a foundational point of view will really help with not just the training, but also that ease of transition of an employee coming on board.
Yeah, and a lot of bookkeepers, and as one mentioned on the call today, that they don't have the time. So do you have the time to continue to be busy, continue to grow your business, continue to be unsustainable because you can't survive at that level of activity? So, you know, do you have the time to be sick? Do you have the time to, you know, make mistakes, of reduce your quality that you are providing your clients? So it's really important to make that time.
I think from a well-being perspective as well, just well-being of you as an individual, it's really important to take some time to reflect, take some time to recharge. And if you're not able to do that, I guess that just goes back to the benchmarks from before, that, well, what does now look like, and what do you want 6 and 12 months to look like, and how do we bridge that gap? And if the level continues the way that it is at the moment, well, you're not going to get to that 6 or 12 month mark that you're ideally looking to be at. So yeah, very, very important, because, but again, go back to that well-being point. Nobody wants to be working 12 hours days, 6 days a week and sort of feel like they're just treading. It's not fun. You do want to take that time as a business owner to sort of sit back, reflect, and then be able to implement those operational changes to make that happen.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about business culture.
Business culture. So like you said, it's one of the interesting ones that too many people just don't think about. It's very easy to forget and neglect. But I guess just sort of reiterating and summarizing, you've got your benchmark set, you've got your understanding of what type of employee you want, you've got your processes and foundations ready to go, but what type of environment is this person going to be walking into? It's really, really important to establish that right from the get-go. And there's multiple little tricks and things that we can do, and we'll discuss those a little bit later. And that's one of the takeaways from today's conversation for everybody, is a document that discusses ways in which you can implement business culture, and some really actionable items, not stuff that is crazy that you download a book from somebody that's, you know, doing blogs and all the other crazy things that you see out there in the web. It's really actionable items. But I guess the first and most fundamental methodology behind really good business culture, it's around creating culture. Well, first, it's achieved by having the processes and procedures to drive the open and collaborative environment. So just going back to what you said, but just before, Katrina, about having those processes and procedures in place to make sure that it's really easy, it's actionable, it's scalable, and that transition is really simple for the staff member. But also creating a WE methodology, which is based on accountability and high performing staff. So you want to recruit staff that are accountable, you want to recruit staff that are high performing, but you want it to be a WE methodology, not a you versus them. That's where the barriers really start to break down. And what this does, that WE methodology that we're talking about, is it's where the employee group or the employee that you're working with, if it's a singular employee, installs that culture and behavior that the employee group is expected to subscribe to. So couple of key points there is, well, we want the staff member to be acting in that way, but we also want you as the I guess the boss, if you want to call it that, of that, or leader of that employee, to be also acting within that WE methodology, because ultimately the way in which an employee perceives your business, the way in which an employee is going to act, really does come from the way in which yourself acts and the way in which you go about the culture within the business. But ideally, you want to set a plan for this. It's not something that just happens. It's not a magical thing that somebody walks in and instantly we've got culture. You do want to plan, because the planning side of it makes it a lot easier to execute on the strategies that we'll be discussing.
Yeah, and it's certainly not something that I've considered in my business. And it probably is, it's discreet, like it's behind the scenes, like you're actually setting up a business culture without even you realising it, the way that you do interact with your clients and with your staff. So to be able to set a plan, and you've got a document that they can download to give guidance around creating that plan. So it's something that you could possibly get your staff involved in as well, if you were to sit down and brainstorm for a half a day around the business culture. And you know, it's great to involve your staff around your vision and your culture and these documents that actually, you know, define your business.
Yeah, well, the values are the critical one here, because at the end of the day, there's a certain level of expectation around your, I guess, your quantitative performance KPIs, but the values-based ones are the ones that always get missed. And that is, I guess, as an example of some of our happy HR ones, we are collaborators. That's a value that we live by, and basically, as simple as it sounds, but we collaborate. So if there's something that we need to discuss with somebody, the person sitting next to me, as I guess instilling that value in them, means that they're willing to have that conversation. Not, I'm too busy with my work, leave me alone. Well, multiple heads are better than one. So working through those values there. But yeah, it's important to not get caught in the trap that too many people think that culture is based on a table tennis table in the office, or a foosball table, or going out for drinks and going out for lunches and all that sort of stuff. That's not culture. Culture, what that does is it can enhance culture, but it can also detract from culture. And the reason I say that is because it's the fundamental day-to-day activities and the way in which you operate in that pressure cooker environment of the office and the day-to-day operations is ultimately where that culture comes out, and how you interact with staff and how the staff interact with you, and that culture that you create. If you then go out for drinks, or you go out for dinner or a lunch, you have a great time because you know you connect in the office. But if you don't connect in the office, it's really superficial if you're going out for a drink or a coffee or for dinner, because it's sort of a forced event. It's not an event that somebody wants to be a part of. So it really does start in the office. And if there's one tip that I don't think is actually in this presentation, is don't let that trap of thinking that it's external office events or team events that do create that culture. They're simply tools to emphasize the culture and bring people closer together, but they can also push people apart if the culture within the office is not as sound as it should be.
Yeah, interesting. It's certainly, and I know for Pure Bookkeeping, we've actually done a core value exercise with the whole team. So across the world, we were together and we broke away into groups and discussed, you know, what we value, what our core values are, and what, you know, what for each person, what our values were, and then mix them all in together and found the ones that sat true, and then, you know, had that explanation of each one of those words, what it meant to us. So it was a really good exercise, and it did take a couple of sessions, or probably 2 or 3 sessions, for a long period of time, to actually really drill down into it. Yeah, so it was a good exercise.
Yeah, and it is important to get staff involved, but I think it's also just as important to remind staff of what the values are. It's all well and good in that exercise, but 3 months down the track, when everybody's busy,
That's true.
we forget.
Yeah.
So a good practical tip there is that if you're going to have a weekly meeting with your staff member, sort of have 5 or 6 different values based I guess metrics that you work around. So we are collaborators, as I said, with one of ours. Another one's learn from failure, challenge the status quo. So there's a few that we have, and every single week in our team meeting, 2 days before, our operations manager will send us all an email and say, this week at the meeting, you need to present how you have done X. And he'll pick one of the values-based KPIs that we have, or values that we work by as a team. And we need to present how during that week we learned from failure and what we did to overcome that, or how we were collaborators and what that looked like amongst the team. So just constantly reinforcing that message is a way to instill it, but also as a business owner, not forgetting that you are also in control of driving that message. Don't just leave it to the team. You have to be living by those fundamental values every day as well.
Mm. And how important is that to do that for a team of one? So if you've only got one staff member?
I think it's still critically important, because at the end of the day, when you look at collaborators, well, you want that staff member to be able to collaborate with you as a business owner. Learn from failure is very simple. They make a mistake. Well, it's not get upset and have a go at them. Well, what did we learn from this experience? How are we going to be better at it next time? Another one is creating wow moments. That we have to strive to create wow moments with every client that we deal with, regardless whether it's one staff member or 250. The same principles apply, that you still want that person to be acting in those values. And the benefit there is that when more staff members come on board, that person is already operating in that way, and they're setting the tone for everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. You're not starting from scratch 3 employees later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you've got the skills, you know, you're learning about this stuff now, start implementing it, and just, you know, we're not HR experts as bookkeepers. We're not even business leaders until we start putting staff on, and until we start doing these type of exercises, and it really helps us develop as business leaders as well. So, and it's ever evolving. It doesn't mean that it's going to stop from the first exercise.
No, it doesn't. All right. So just some key strategies. So 3 key strategies to drive culture. So ongoing development of your cultural strategy, as you just mentioned. It's always ongoing. It never stops. And that is largely based on regular employee surveys and feedback. So typically you've got your what we call a 360-degree survey, which is done sort of 6 or 12 monthly, which is quite deep in terms of the amount of questions that you ask. But another, another fundamental one is what we call a pulse survey. So that's done whether it's weekly or fortnightly. We do them internally weekly. And basically that's just keeping a finger on the pulse as to how your staff are feeling. And you make that nice and short and sharp, 3 questions, 2 questions, 4 questions, whatever you want. But it does keep your finger on the pulse. And whether it's one staff member or 20, it makes no difference. It's sometimes staff are a little bit hesitant to talk to you face to face. But if you provide them with a survey, they may be a little bit more open to how they're feeling, which is important for you to know as a business owner and a leader. And then consistent leadership and communication of required behaviours that tied back to your vision, mission, and values. So really what we just discussed before, you as a leader constantly communicating that to your staff and finding fun ways to bring that to the forefront, different activities that you can do. And then regular, constructive, and engaging performance management that leads to professional growth and development of your employees. So too often we come across businesses across all industries, and bookkeeping certainly not a one that gets away from this, but because we're so busy being busy, we forget about the development side of things. And you may have somebody that's at that level too, but what does it take to get them to that next level? What sort of things do they need to learn? We don't want to pigeonhole to those sorts of activities. I know you've discussed in the past, Katrina, in some of our conversations, do we give them one client? And then we help them to develop their skills based on that one client, and then next it grows to 2 and 3 and 4 and so on and so forth, and you help them to grow in that way. But an interesting one there is staff are driven by a drive to defend, which we will discuss in some other webinars next year. But the drive to defend is all about transparency, and staff want transparency, and they want to know how they're performing, and they want to know what their development and growth looks like. Especially the millennial generation, they're very big on understanding their career path. It's not just a matter of getting to a job and work and that's the end of it. It is very much, what am I doing to contribute, and where is this job taking me? What's my journey going to look like? So it's really, really important to instill those regular performance management meetings, and also the professional growth as well as personal growth of your employees.
Yeah, awesome.
And I think the next page just goes through some of those key strategies there. So I know there's a little bit on the screen to read through here, but don't stress, we will be sending this out to everybody, or it's a download that you can certainly get off, I think it was the landing page, or we'll send this out as well. But basically, there's a range of different cultural strategies that you can implement. And the first one, obviously, first cab off the rank, value-based KPIs. We've discussed that at length today. Very, very important to have those in place. Mentorship sessions, if you've got somebody that is at that level too, and you are looking to potentially move them forwards, it is always so much better to promote internally than hire externally and bring them in and try and train them up on your processes. Obviously, we're hoping that you all have the pure bookkeeping processes in place, but you just want to make sure that you're mentoring those people in the right way. And then really from there, it's around, well, what's your contact strategy? How are you remaining in contact with your staff? What sort of initiatives and activities have you got in place to make sure that you're always staying in touch? And that is your development plans, your quarterly meetings, surveys, social calendars, all that sort of stuff. So it is really important to have those, and not just get caught in the trap of, well, I work with them side by side every day, we're communicating about work all the time. Well, that's great, but that's client work. That's not how you guys are working together. That's not how that person's feeling. It's not about what their training looks like, and how to improve on those mistakes or training sessions you're going to put in place. And it does sound like a lot, but when you break those down into sort of bite-sized pieces, they all take place at different times of the year. And you can put them in sequential orders, book them into your calendar, and they're ready and they're set, and you know when they're taking place. So from a activity point of view, it's really simple to break it all down, and reading through the document that you download, it'll certainly make a lot of sense, and there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah, that's great, and thank you for offering a lot of good quality information that people can get access to, and certainly a lot being learnt today as well. So I'd love to open up the floor for if there's any questions. If you've got a certain circumstance that you're going through at the moment with your recruitment, or identifying who to put on, I'm happy to put you off mute if you'd like to even come and have a chat. So just put up your hand if you would like to be allowed to talk. Excuse me. So that we can talk through any issues that you're having around thinking about, do I employ, do I have enough money? So somebody did mention about, not having enough money. And my view on that is that you cannot, if you're wanting to grow and put staff on, you need to start somewhere. And if you are already tapped out with workload and you're acting like the technician, or acting like you've got a job and you're just busier and busier, and you want to put more clients on, and you want to improve the clients that you put on, and you've got a lot of work to do, then finding that strategy to put that staff member on, and it might only be 2 days a week to start with, to move some of that work over to somebody else for you to be able to work on your systems. And that person you employ can also help you work on your system. So creating the checklists, creating the client manuals, creating the report packs, things that are going to make it a lot easier for you and more efficient for you. So putting that staff member on to assist you do that. You might initially have a setback in terms of take-home income, but it is for the betterment of your future business. And it will only be for a short term, because the improvements that you will be able to make to your business by allowing yourself to work on your business will make more of an impact than it will in putting somebody on and thinking that you're going to lose money. Because that mindset of I'm not going to earn that money, somebody else is going to earn that money, won't get you that business that you're dreaming of or wanting to grow into.
No, I liken it, 100%. And I liken it to, I guess, the first time you go on a roller coaster. You're taking the steps up, you get there, you're really shaky, you're scared, you're not quite sure what to expect. And then you jump on and you've got the support, which is people like yourself and myself are sort of sitting around you to keep you protected. But it's a roller coaster. You're up and down, you're screaming, you're crying, you're laughing. It's a roller coaster ride of different emotions. But when you sort of get around to the end, you get off and go, well, I don't actually know what I was so afraid of. I want to go back and do this again. So if I could put it in a simple way, that sort of completely understand the concern. But one thing I do want to reiterate there is that there is people there for support, and there are people there to help you and guide you through whatever, I guess, hesitations or frustrations you have with that process. There's certainly help, and you're not alone in what you're trying to achieve. Yeah,
exactly. The industry is so supportive in general and very generous with their time and their, their experiences and knowledge to reach out to people. Certainly reach out to Pure Bookkeeping or Happy HR if you've got questions around that. But it doesn't sound like we've got any questions today. If there's nobody wanting to have a chat about what they're experiencing, nothing's coming up. So while people are just thinking about that, I might just, we might talk about what we're going to be doing next week. So same time next week, we're going to be delving into the position descriptions that you need to create for your new employee, looking at the persona, the culture of the persona, making sure that you match that persona with your business. Looking at skills testing or a way of being able to test that staff member. Have I missed anything out, Steve? Was there something else? I feel as if there might be.
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I think it just sort of gives a bit more depth into why position descriptions are so important and why they're probably the most underrated documents. So it's really that next step in the process. We've looked at today the business planning, I guess. So what does it look like from a business point of view? But then the planning around the individual and what that individual is going to look like. So the business is now taken care of. We've set our benchmarks. We've got our processes in place, our culture, and we understand what that's going to look like. But what does the employee now look like? And what are we ultimately looking for there? So that's the next stage of the planning phase. And it's all around the skills testing and making sure that their core competencies are where they need to be. And I know you've got a lot to discuss around how Pure Bookkeeping can help there. And also setting up the persona, the individual that's going to be working side by side with you. And an example again today, I had a job interview with a candidate, but this candidate, it was a very informal conversation just to make sure that we could get along and converse with each other, and it was going to be a nice experience working together. So going to a bit more detail around what the persona of the individual should look like.
Yeah, which is very important. And again, something that people don't consider. Yeah. So what I might do is just launch our last poll, which is around whether you would like to learn some more. Just going to launch that. So if you'd like to learn more about Pure Bookkeeping and or Happy HR, so let us know, and the team, each of our teams will send you some more information. And get in contact with you just for a complimentary chat. if you're interested in, learning about what pure bookkeeping does and how we can support you, setting up those foundations of the business, and how Happy HR and Happy HR also have a service, obviously, not just recruiting, but also in supporting the HR, not just of your business, but your client's business as well. So the package that they've got allows you to ask HR questions on behalf of your clients for a very small fee, which is discounted for pure bookkeeping licensees.
Yep. And further to that as well, if anybody, I guess, was sort of hesitant today to come out and discuss, because it's more of an in-camera conversation as part of the relationship that Happy HR has with pure bookkeeping. Pure bookkeeping licensees are entitled to some free support for their business as well.
Yeah, which is awesome. And I think we mentioned next week we're also handing out some position descriptions and some information on how to do those skills testing that we will talk about next week. So join us next week as well. And then, looking into next year about getting this done, getting somebody on next year, and what you need to do to get involved in doing that, best ways, your different options, and then maintaining the staff, the KPIs and different things we'll deal with next time.
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to end that poll. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll be in touch with some information. Just minimise that. And Kay, the next session is Wednesday. What day are we in? Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday,
same time.
Same day, same time next week.
Yes.
And then we'll do another couple next year to just follow up. But let's get our planning done. Let's get our homework done that we need to do over the next couple of months. I think this has been an awesome content. Really good webinar, lots of information. So great, and glad you enjoyed it, Judy and Kay. Thank you. And anybody that wants to reach out for us, you've got the details there. And thanks again, Steve, for joining me today. It's been an awesome webinar. Really enjoyed it. And have a good. What was that? Sorry.
I said thank you. Thank you for having me today.
That's okay. Yeah, our pleasure. All right. Thanks so much. And we'll see you
everybody.
all next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.